What's up, everybody? I had a couple people request that I show how I balance my C200 on the gimbal. So in this video, I'm going to walk through how to do that. This is going to be a pretty uncut, unedited video, a little bit longer length, a little bit more in detail. So if you want to see the condensed video, go check out my last video. That's going to show you why I used the parts that I used and more of an overview. This video is a little more in depth, and I'm going to show like how to balance it and those sorts of things. Also, it's worth noting that I will be putting chapters in this video. So if you can use this video more as a reference. You don't have to watch through the whole thing. Look through the chapters. If you're just looking at how to balance it, I'm going to have a section on that. If you're just looking at what a certain part is, I'll do my best to keep those all sorted out in the chapters on the time code. All right, so for starters, this is the handheld rig. As I mentioned, this rig is pretty basic, pretty stock, you would say. And the only real modification is the microphone mount that I made, which I'm actually pretty proud of. It works really well. It allows me to be very creative because I can film just about anything with it. The 24-70 is very versatile. This rig is just very versatile, very easy to use, very simple, straightforward, and it's heavy enough that it's so nice to use handheld because it's not too shaky or anything. So anyways, absolutely love this rig handheld, and I didn't want to give up that functionality by just building a gimbal rig. So I wanted to build a rig that I could switch onto a gimbal really quickly and switch back off to complement my creativity in my work. So that's the handheld rig. Pretty basic, pretty straightforward. Now, maybe on a wedding day, a lot of times I want to switch to the gimbal, say it's coming up on the ceremony, and I need to be able to hold the camera still for long takes, right? So what I'll do is I'll bring this to like the back of my car, and I'll take out my RS2, and this is all you need, guys. You need RS2. I've already got the mount for the pistol grip on there, and I've already got the shape relocation cable on there. And then you need a counterweight, 60-gram counterweight by Tilta, as you can see. And you need the focus module, which is basically DJI's focus motor on a base plate counterweight adapter. So that's all you need to do the switch. So I'm gonna leave that there for a second because we don't need that quite yet. First, we gotta take it apart, right? I'm gonna start by taking off my whole shotgun mic and the shotgun mic mount. All right, so there's that. I'm gonna take off the monitor. Just like that. Take off my top handle and take that screw. Since that screw will come out, I'll just screw it in the top right there so that doesn't get lost. And then take my pistol grip off. Unplug, there we go. Okay, and then the only other thing to do is swap out my BPA 60, as you can see right there, with a BPA 30 because it's much smaller and it just it works with the gimbal. It doesn't get in the way of the roll motor. All right, so now we bring in the gimbal. And I'm gonna go ahead and get these set up like so. Once again, the shape relocation cable is already on there. It's just strapped to the bottom of this base plate, as you can see right here. Okay, so first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take the C200. It's all stripped down and everything. And I'm gonna make sure my little thing is unlocked on the gimbal. And then I'm gonna put this on here. Use a little gear roller thing to adjust it back pretty much all the way, and then just lock it down. And then the next thing I typically do is I take my monitor. I'm running out of room. Let me reframe this camera real quick. Cool, that should be good. Just want to make sure everybody can see it up close and far away. So I take my monitor like so, and I take it and I put it on top of the camera. It's worth noting that this thumb screw has a spacer on it, just so that it doesn't bottom out on the top of this camera like so. All right, so I'm just gonna mount that on there as far in as I can. And that's good right there, perfect. Okay, and now it's as simple as putting my monitor right there. It's good to go. And usually clip that cable in there. All right, and we're good. We've got a monitor, we're good to go, right? Next thing is mounting the shotgun mic. And to do that, I'm gonna take the mic out of the mount, and I'm gonna take this screw out of the mount. As you can see, usually it sits like this, where it's slinging the mic upside down. But I'm gonna take this screw out. I'm gonna flip it over and put it in the other side, like that. This is a little bit of an annoying thing. There's probably a better way to do this. And then I'm gonna use the other screw on top of the C200, and I'm gonna mount it right there. Once again, these quarter 20s have D-rings on them, so everything's adjustable by hand. That was really important to me when I built this rig, is to make sure I could adjust everything by hand. As you'll see in this video, I don't use any tools to do this swap. So I think that's something that's really valuable with this rig, is you don't need a huge toolkit to swap, which is, you know, me at weddings. I don't really want to have to tinker with a lot of little screws and little things that could get lost and make things go wrong. So it's reliable, it's simple, everything's all together. These D-ring screws don't fall out of this mount when you take the mount off, which is really nice. So definitely check the links in my description if you want to make sure you get the same ones, because they're pretty sweet. Then I take my shotgun mic, which is the Sennheiser MKE 600. Absolutely love this mic, highly recommend it. Gonna clip it back in there, and then I'm going to plug her in. Simple as that. All right, put my monitor back down, get that in position, and let's see, what else do we need? Oh yes, okay. So at this point, I'm gonna put my focus system like this, and I'm gonna take it and I'm gonna slide it onto the front of the camera. And then that's the beautiful thing about this system, is you can just slide it on the front of the Manfrotto plate. So if I need to take this and put it on my RS2 and run manual focus on there, I can do that too. This is a very, very modular way to run your manual focus. So I really like that. It just slides on there and tightens up like so. Very simple, very straightforward. And then, actually I need to go back a little further. There we go. And then just move that in, get it kind of tight, and lock it down. And the beautiful thing about this lens on the C200, for whatever reason, it's really rigid. The C200 is rigid. The mounting plate is really rigid. It's hooked on with 2 screws. Really, really solid system. So on this lens and this setup, I haven't even seen a need to add a lens strap or a lens support. But I would highly recommend you do if you feel any movement of any kind. So it's been rock solid for me. This works great, but just keep that in mind. All right, and then I'll just plug my cord in. Okay, now before I put my my pistol grip on there, I'm gonna balance the C200. So I'm gonna take my other counterweight, it's the only counterweight, my bad. And I'm gonna mount it up under here on the bottom of the Manfrotto plate. So there's a screw hole in there. As you can see, I have a little 3/8 adapter on this counterweight. So you just need a counterweight with a 3/8 thread on it for this plate. But this is pretty straightforward. And I just mount it up under there like so. You can see that, right? I think you can, yeah, you can see that. All right, so that's mounted on there. Now before I plug this cord in and throw my balance off, I'm gonna balance it without plugging that in. So, and I find that helps me get the closest to being correctly balanced. So what I do is I take my lens and I bring it to 50 millimeters, because that's a pretty good mid-range between 70 and 24. It's not exactly in the middle of 70 and 24, it's just where the lens is kind of in the middle of its range. So there's 70, there's 24, 50 is usually where I balance it. And then I'm gonna start with this motor. How would you say this is a tilt motor? I don't know the technical terms of what motor's what. I just start with this axis. It's the tilt axis. Okay, cool. So I'm gonna start with the tilt axis and I'm gonna unlock it, see what it does. Okay. And as you can see, this has been balanced with this camera before, so it's not gonna take crazy adjustment. I'm gonna unlock it and slide it back some, just a little bit, just a smidgen. All right, it's still like, what would you call it, seesawing? Is that what you call it? Where it goes back to the center every time. So I'm gonna unlock it, move it forward. Yeah, it's a little finicky. Move it back just a hair. Okay, so it's balancing back to the middle, but it shouldn't be doing that, right? Like if I move it to here, it should stay there. If I move it to here, it should stay there, right? So you need the center of gravity running right through this axis. So I'm gonna take my little clamp here and undo it and move this up just the smallest amount that I possibly can. Didn't seem to do anything, so I'm gonna do it again. Unclip, move it up just a little bit. It's really hard to get this right. Like this is probably the most annoying one, because this is probably too much. No? Okay, that's pretty good. Wow, that's amazing. Okay, cool. So that axis is good. Now I'm going to move to my roll axis, and as you can see, it's just trying to go all the way over right now. So I'm going to clip that back in. I'm going to move it out quite a bit. I kind of happen to know around where I need to move this out to, so I'm going to move it out some. I kind of assist the camera while I'm doing this. It helps me out. All right, unlock. Okay, now it's going the other way. All right, so I'm going to move it back in some. Pick up the camera, just kind of brace it a little bit and move it in just a little bit. Unlock. Seems to be pretty good. Now the annoying thing is, like, this isn't perfect balance, right? Like it is rolling back to the center, which isn't ideal. But on the roll motor, it's so hard to get it perfect because in order to change this, you would have to adjust weight on the actual camera. I don't want to load this camera down with counterweights. This has worked fine as long as you're not moving your gimbal handle too far over to one side or the other. So that's pretty good on that balance. I know it's not perfect. Ideally, you would move it to here and it would stay right there, and you'd move it to here and it would stay right there. But it does roll back to center, but not terrible, right? So it's acceptable for me. Might not be acceptable for you, you know, and I respect that. So anyways, those are the roll and the tilt axes. Now we need the pan axis. Unclip it. Okay, she's rolling down. This one's a weird one, man. It's good on this side, but not good on the other side. I see how it is. All right, you gotta be careful with this. Some of you might be looking at this and cringing, being like, oh, that's so dangerous. And I'm like, I do wedding films. I don't have the luxury of doing it the perfectly correct way. So, sorry about that. All right, that's good enough for me. It's not really moving around a lot. And now, I'll take my pistol grip and put it on my rosette mount right here. You can see that on that camera. Yep, we're good. And I'm gonna mount that on there just like this. Very easy to do. Once again, everything is done by hand. I typically run the end of this cable and I put it above the little adjustment knob just to kind of hold it in there. And then I plug this into here, just like that. Then I take the other end of the shape relocation cable. See if you can see this on this camera. It might be a little hard, but I take the other end of the shape relocation cable and I put it into the pistol grip connector port There we go. Perfecto. All right, good deal. Now, as you'll see, with that cable attached, this is my biggest gripe with this rig right now, is that cable does put a little bit of strain on the motors, and I really don't like that. But this is like the only relocation cable on the market for this camera. You can't just use a TRS or a TRRS cable, like a headphone cable. You can't do that. It doesn't work. I've tried it. Tried every cable combination possible, and it doesn't work. So that cable, it does put a little bit of strain. As you can see here though, as long as you leave enough flex in it, it's not too bad. It does mess with it right there if you're tilting down like really hard. But for the most part, you're really good to go. Okay, so small limitations, but nothing crazy. Okay, so now we should be able to turn our camera on, turn our microphone on, unlock all axes, and fire up the gimbal. There we go. Manual focus is working perfectly, yep. And then I'm gonna perform an auto tune in my RS2 just to, and I try to do this on a flat surface. Sometimes it's a little hard to do that in the back of my car, but I'll do an auto tune so it kind of knows its limits. And that helps it not vibrate as much. There we go. Perfect. All right. And now, as you can see, we're good to go. So we have gimbal fully balanced. It's pretty flexible. I don't do anything crazy, like any crazy movements on this. My main, see how that can catch sometimes if you're not careful? Yeah, I really don't like that cable. I want to do something about that, but that's what I got right now, and that's just what I'm showing you. So keeping it real, right? Now, my purpose for putting this camera on the gimbal, which is something good to keep in mind, is for wedding films. And if I'm putting it on the gimbal, it's because I want steady movements that aren't moving around too much, like during a ceremony, during first looks, things like that, where I need to hold the camera really steady and get some nice smooth footage. And I can't stand in one spot. So if I'm a handheld, it might be kind of shaky. It's doable for some things. I could probably pull off a ceremony with it if I had to, but the gimbal makes it a lot easier. It's a really good tool. But my point in saying that is that I'm not using this gimbal to run the C200 and film action scenes, right? If I was doing that, balance would need to be probably more perfect. This cable would probably be more of a problem, and so forth and so on. So this gimbal is built around my needs, and that's good to keep in mind. Your needs might be different. That's totally fine. I'm just showing you what I've done, and this works really well for my needs. And once again, as you can see, it didn't take me very long to switch this out. And I do it a lot quicker if I'm not explaining everything to you in the process, right? So anyways, it works really well. I've got the record button at my fingertips. Very, very handy to be able to hit record. Control my aperture right here. I've got my joystick so I can adjust where my little focus boxes are. And I've got my customizable button right back here. I can punch in. I've got that set to punching in the frame and checking if I'm in focus. So yeah, really, really nice rig. This is really good for weddings. I really enjoy it. And I really enjoy how easy it is to switch between handheld and gimbal. So that's how it works when I'm using it. And then my arms get tired. I'm not filming anything anymore. I just double tap the power button to put it to sleep. I lock all my axes. And then I can carry it by this arm right here. And my leg isn't bumping into anything, any cables or anything right here. So this is a really, really handy rig because it doesn't wear me out. It's heavy, but it's a lot more doable than you would think. So yeah, that's the rig. I absolutely love it. I would highly recommend it to people doing wedding films or other types of work. I think this is probably the most compact C200 gimbal rig I've seen on the internet. And I just love how it still uses the stock pistol grip. The reason I had to do that is because camera control doesn't work with the C200. So that's a problem, but this is a really good solution. I absolutely love this rig. I think the C200 pushes the limits of the RS2 a little bit. I have had the gimbal start to vibrate and freak out at times, more than I did with the Pocket 6K, but overall it works really well. Okay, so I hope that answered any of your questions about the C200 on the RS2 and balancing and all those good things. So if you have any other questions, please drop them in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, if you got value out of it, please give the video a like, because that just really helps push it to more people, helps my channel out. Really appreciate that. There are links in the comments to everything I used here. Most of them are affiliate links, which helps my channel out, so I appreciate it if you use those. If you don't, I don't care. But anyways, thank you for watching this video. I hope it was helpful, and have a blessed day.